On that same day, I attended a session about how you can be more positive and, get out of negativity and go out there and see things in a different lens. Now, I know we have a lot of these coming up, but it's always good to remind yourself that things are okay. I can feel better about this. I'm allowed to feel better about this. I don't have to cringe and whinge and, be left alone and depressed and do my own thing. No, I can actually feel better. I should feel better, and I have the power to move on in life. So the session was delivered by Srikumar Rao, who is the founder of Rao, an organization, and he mentioned things like, do you say stuff like the universe is not playing ball, the world is targeting you, all of these things that we all say when stuff happens. Said, well, then you're in the right place. And he talked about why this happens. And I found this very interesting. He's saying in our life, what we try to do is to take control of things. Very interesting thought. And your life is an endless quest to have control. But control is a myth. You only have the illusion of control. That's very interesting, very powerful. Now look for a second. If you think about it, you really do not have control on everything, full control I mean. Yeah, you do have control over whether you study or not, but you don't have control over, for example, what comes in the exam. What are the questions that will come? You don't have control over that. You can study, yeah, but you can never know what's in the exam or control what comes to the exam. If you think about other stuff, yeah, you don't really have that control that you think you might have. And not having this control, feeling depressed, feeling the loss of control is actually what makes you go into this vicious cycle of self-pity and crappy moods. Now, what he's saying is that appreciation and gratitude are good to combat sadness and stress. So do that with yourself, do that with others. Create that tendency within yourself to appreciate and to give gratitude. So compliment yourself for good stuff that you've done, compliment others for the stuff that they've done. They will give you compliments back. And this is like good, it kind of stirs good energy in the room, in your life in general. So a very good tip. A good thing, bad thing, who knows? This is a very interesting story I read I don't know how many years ago, and he reminded me of this story. About this guy who keeps on having good stuff and people coming and invading him for, all the successes. Then something crappy happens and they go and they say, oh, we're so sorry this and that happened. And, in between the two sets of them envying him on something and then them pitying him on other stuff, he always said, good thing, bad thing, who knows? So that's the mentality he's encouraging you to have. Think about all the stuff that happened to you and just be neutral about it. This could be good, this could be bad. You never know. Just move on and hopefully good stuff will come at you. He said something very interesting. He said, we are very interested in focusing on the outcome. We just want the outcome. The secret, anybody? He said you need to invest in the process. Now think about that. Think about that from a computer perspective. Crap in, crap out. So if you run a regression using SPSS or whatever, and your data is crap, the data that you put into the system is crap. Whatever analysis, no matter how accurate it is done by the computer, you will have a crap output because your initial data was crap. Again, following that same analogy, you have to invest in the process. You don't just go out there and focus on the end in mind. Yeah, you need to keep it. You need to keep it out there because this is what matters. This is what you want to achieve. You always need to have visual of it. But you need to invest as much effort as building the process that takes you there. Again, very good advice. We tend to focus on, just thinking about the end result. But here's something to think about. What he says is that reaching the goal is the bonus. The value is in the learning and trying to get to the goal. So that journey of you learning and trying to get to the goal is the actual reward. If you achieve your goal 100%, kudos to you. That's a bonus. But enjoy the process, enjoy the learning that happens. Very interesting. I love this bit. And one of the last things he said, be a civil engineer. You don't choose your terrain, but you still need to construct the road. Think about it, again, talking about control. So if he gave the example, if you're like a very good engineer, senior engineer in a firm, and your CEO calls you and he says, I want you to build a road here in this place. And it's a very dodgy terrain. It has all the elements that would not allow you to build something, but the CEO, he says, tough luck, we need that road built, go build it. So again, your problem is not going to be solved by just saying, oh, I need to have control, I need to do this, I need to do that. Your problem is going to be solved by investing in the process. What can I do to make it work? You have no control over this. You were given the instruction to build the road, and you have to go and construct the road. But how you build it, what do you do, is up to you. You're the engineer, so make it work. Very powerful stuff. The last keynote we had on the third day was from Sheryl Sandberg. If you don't know who Sheryl is, she's the CEO of Facebook. And she wrote, I'm sure you know the book, Option B is one of the books she authored. And she had also a very interesting keynote. She talked about women specifically and how success in general happens in organization, how it's perceived. And she said that women's success is usually attributed to luck, support, and hard work. So whenever we have women succeeding in a business, we attribute their success to these three things. While when men succeed, we attribute it to their skills. So they're skillful, but women are hardworking, supported, and lucky. Very interesting. So this is again about stereotypes and biases that we have. She said also that we need to talk about openly about challenges and biases, even if it's uncomfortable. Again, we don't talk about things like discrimination because they're very sticky subjects, and saying the wrong thing or talking about them could be construed as you believing in something or you making somebody feel uncomfortable. So we tend not to have these conversations. What she's saying is that we must have these conversations in order for things to change. So again, being bold and talking about the things you need to talk about. Peer mentorship is as important as manager mentorship. So if you don't have peer mentorship in your organization, it's really as powerful as having manager mentorship. Specifically, when you don't have that much time with your management team and they cannot afford to give their time to mentorship programs. So again, peer mentorship, there were some studies done on this and some results shared, and it's quite impressive. We shouldn't be afraid to bring up and show up for support in the fear of bringing painful memory, because otherwise we isolate people. She said that in the context of her losing a husband. Unfortunately, I didn't know that she has. And she was talking about, people who have similar things. And, when we check in on them, we're so afraid to bring this up because we don't want to remind them of what's happening or what has happened and how they're feeling. But she said, actually, when we do that, we encourage and we reinforce isolating them in their own problem. We need to be open. We need to reach out to them and make them know that we're there for them to support them. And it's okay. Life is going to be okay and they will be looked after. So again, a very powerful thing that stood out from her speech. She did something very funny during the session. Said, when we look at kids and you see a baby girl, a child with a character, with a strong character, you always say that she's bossy. And she actually asked the girls in the room, all the females in the room, to raise their hand if they experienced something similar. And they did, they all did. And then she asked men the same question in the room. She said, how many times when you displayed certain behaviors in front of people and you looked like bossy, how many times were you told that you were bossy? And of course, there was actually one person who raised their hand, said, yeah, because what they do tell you actually is that you're a potential leader. But women, they never get that. They actually get that they're bossy. Very interesting. Think about our biases. And last but not least, the last session I attended on the last day was a session by John Rubino, who talked about how to be successful internal HR consultant. And some of the things that stood out for me in this session are the following. So he said, perception is more important than reality for HR because the image is what might prevent you from selling your program. So if you're doing any kind of program, a compensation program, a welfare program, an employee engagement program, a leadership development program, your perception is your reality. That is so true, folks. I cannot emphasize enough how true that is. I lived it myself. And I'll be talking in separate videos in the future about my own experiences when it comes to that. So this is really powerful. So your perception is your reality when you're in an organization. If you're not perceived as an added value HR, life is tough. You don't get to accomplish a lot. So how do you change that perception is what the aim of the session was, for you to become a successful internal consultant. Because in order for you to be able to consult for the organization internally and be that go-to person from an HR perspective, you need to have that credibility. You need to have that halo around you, that you're trustworthy enough. You need to have that perception with people. To be successful consultant, you need to be a psychologist, a detective, and a salesman. Very interesting. I love this. So a psychologist, why a psychologist? Because you need to understand the psyche of people around you. You need to be able to understand how to deal with them differently, to get the best out of them and to get them to, believe in you. So again, a psychologist. A detective. Very interesting. So why a detective? Well, a detective because you need to understand what is happening around you. You need to understand the business context around you. You need to understand what are the problems, what are the issues that are happening in the organization. You need to have that eye for detail to be able to be relevant and give the best advice and give the best analysis. So very important for you as a consultant internally is to do some of that detective work. And finally, a salesman. Again, what for? You need to be able to pitch in your own ideas. You need people to believe in them and to follow your lead. So what he said is that people think HR is a very easy job. And I love the way he puts it, because this is so true. You need to be a psychologist, a detective, and a salesman. Again, selling what you want to sell, new ideas, new initiatives, new programs, seeing what's wrong, playing the detective, looking at problems in the organizations, things that can improve, how to improve them, and get to the bottom of things. And a psychologist, know the psyche of people, know how to help them, know how they function, and customizing your message for each person differently. Very powerful. And one other thing he said, what does success profile look in your company? If you don't have that defined, it is very difficult to do your job, specifically in a performance management context. Because think about this for a second. We disagree and agree the whole time about what standards should be in profession A or profession B. So if you don't have an understanding, a common ground for you in your organization, what is an acceptable performance, a successful performance profile? What does it look like? It's very hard to, very hard to be on the same page, very hard to move on, very hard to do performance management, to do leadership development. And this is something I experienced firsthand. So believe me when, I say this is very important stuff, this is very important stuff. He talked about personalizing the message to different audiences. Again, going back to the psychologist bit, and being mindful of the differences in levels you have in the organization. So don't be lazy. This is what he said. Don't be lazy and try to send a one-size-fits-all communication, because life is just not like that. People are not the same. Their levels are different. Their understanding of things is different, and you might just write off a complete chunk of your audience by not customizing a message. So again, customize the messages based on your audience. Don't send a one-size-fits-all. And last but not least, mix the media of what you're saying. So if you have different media that you use, like Facebook, like LinkedIn, like internal boards, like, I don't know, anything you have, diversify your message, make it visible. Have that connection with people at every possible intersection, so that they're reminded always and constantly of the messages and what you're doing. And this is part of all becoming a successful consultant for your company and doing what's best by the business and for the business. So these are some of my initial thoughts and some of the key takeouts I had from what I attended. It's impossible to cover the whole conference as one person. I mean, hopefully in the future, if this channel becomes bigger and I have more people interested to join, and we cover conferences together, we could cover a lot more than what I just did. But again, over the past 5 days, these are my takeaways from what happened throughout the conference. If there's a cool thing, SHRM, they have this, which you can find also on my blog. They have this cool e-learning library thing. So if you missed a conference, they've been capturing all their conferences since 2013, and for $199 a year, believe me guys, that's nothing, you get access to all of these. So every session that happened since 2013 to date, you will have access to that on an e-learning platform, and you will get, check this out, you will get actually credits for recertification if you want to recertify. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't attended any of their conferences, go out there, invest that $200. The value you get out of it is immense. You will not be able to, even within a year, to finish all of these sessions unless you do 3 or 4 a day. So again, we're talking about hundreds of sessions over the course of the past 5 years. Again, I would highly recommend it. And one thing I want to mention, in this conference, one of the things that stood out is the number of participants. This was by far the largest HR conference that happened in the world to date. The numbers they shared is that we had more than 20,000 participants, out of which 1,400 participants were out of the United States. Yes. Some conferences, they barely have 1,400 people joining them in their, locality. This conference had 1,400 people just from abroad. And believe me, if you want to be part of something big, I cannot emphasize enough on the importance of attending these conferences. Other than adding to your knowledge, other than showing you what's new out there, other than reinforcing some of the stuff that you know and make sure that they're still relevant, the interaction you have with people, meeting new people, speaking to people about their problems, you'll find out that we have, despite the fact that we come from different places and we work in different geographies, we have very similar issues in this profession. And the access you get to all of these people, to all of these solutions, it just stirs the brain cells. You can think of new stuff, you get creative, you build relationships, which is very important. You share knowledge, which is one of the most important things about our profession. I don't see people doing this enough from the GCC. So unfortunately, fortunately they have a global lounge, and you get to meet people from different countries and especially delegates from other countries. And it was so sad not to see anyone from the UAE, for example. I saw people from Kuwait, I saw people from Egypt, I saw people from Sudan, if I'm not mistaken, I cannot remember. But only these three. GCC had Kuwait and Bahrain, to be fair. Saw people from Bahrain and Kuwait, that's it. UAE, I asked. I didn't see anyone else from the UAE. Didn't even see them gathering. You know, these delegates from countries, they were sitting down in one table, discussing things among themselves, and then moving to other tables and discussing things with other people. This is very healthy. This is what builds, you know, the profession. These exchanges of ideas and, you know, people. Didn't see enough of that from the UAE or the GCC in general. Hope that changes in the future, and I hope I'll see more contribution and more participation from our region and next year. Plus, it's cool. Next year's conference is happening in Nevada, Las Vegas. So a lot of entertainment. You don't have an excuse. If you thought Chicago was not that interesting, which it is, but if you didn't think so, Vegas is everyone's dream. So you have your entertainment covered. How about you go and see some good stuff and learn things and meet people, you know, from your profession. Very interesting. I really encourage you to do it. Cannot recommend these experiences enough. So that's about it for this coverage. Again, my next video, I will talk about specifically HR Department of One, and I mentioned that there was a surprise. I'll be sharing that surprise during that specific video. Stay tuned. If you like what you saw, hit that like button, subscribe, and this is how we keep this channel alive. And please visit the website, visit the blog, you know, visit me on, you know, visit me on other social media platform. I share a lot of things. I want you to share back as well. I want you to, you know, be out there, be you know, participating, create that profession that we all want to create that community that we want to create. That's it for now from my side. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again on the next video.